How did TV and film influence you as a kid? How did it impact your self-understanding and your understanding of the world around you? What characters were heroes for you? How have you been a hero for someone else? How would you like to be? Designing Women. From 1986 to 1993, Linda Bloodworth Thomason channeled righteous rage into Julia Sugarbaker. People give Dixie Carter the credit for her delivery, but the fury was all Bloodworth Thomason's. Designing Women provided a portrait of the South that I'd never seen from the suburbs of the Midwest. The show intentionally leaned into stereotypes about Southerners and about professional women, and for tween me, it was exotic in all the best ways. Glamorous women running an interior design business in shoulder pads, such shoulder pads. It was everything. Like other shows that echoed Norman Lear's legacy of mining real life for comedy and insight, warts and all, Designing Women engaged some of the biggest social battles of the era, and Julia Sugarbaker became an unlikely superhero. She didn't show up in a cape and armed with some fantastic weapon or extraterrestrial strength. Instead, she showed up to the scene in a helmet of stiff hair with battle-ready high heels and shoulder pads. Her superpower, a secret weapon wielded to protect the vulnerable, the righteous, and the marginalized, was her tongue, which was capable of cutting all the villainous Marjories, Ray Dons, Imogenes, and Phyllises of the world down to size, or at least down to our common humanity. Who wouldn't want Mrs. Sugarbaker in their corner? My friend Adnan and I visited Palm Springs several years ago, and we found a gay bar that peppered clips from TV shows and movies among music videos. Video bars, a staple of the modern gay scene and the grandchild of the sing-along piano bar, constitute a vital resource for disseminating queer culture. Like the memes that fill social media, they capture moments worth celebrating, deconstructing, or satirizing. Moments that inform popular consciousness and teach us when to laugh. But when it comes to queer culture, piano and video bars also introduce legends and legendary moments of the past to the children. Stumbling into one of these spaces can be disorienting for some and a life-saving delight for others. Within minutes of getting a drink, Julia was on the screen, slowly moving toward Marjorie in one of her earliest and greatest takedowns. Julia overheard a few young pageant queens mocking her baby sister Suzanne, a former Miss Georgia, for gaining weight and touting her talents as a baton twirler. And she took it as an opportunity to educate Marjorie on what she missed. You probably didn't know that Suzanne was the only contestant in Georgia pageant history to sweep every category except congeniality, and that is not something the women in my family aspired to anyway. Or that when she walked down the runway in her swimsuit, 5 contestants quit on the spot. Or that when she emerged from the isolation booth to answer the question, what would you do to prevent war? She spoke so eloquently of patriotism, battlefields, and diamond tiaras. Grown men wept. By this point, every man in the bar recited along in a variety of affected Southern accents, each of us marking the name Marjorie a la Julia with exaggerated emphasis and smiling disdain. And you probably didn't know, Marjorie, that Suzanne was not just any Miss Georgia. She was the Miss Georgia. She didn't twirl just a baton. That baton was on fire. And when she threw that baton into the air, it flew higher, faster, further than any baton has ever flown before, hitting a transformer and showering the darkened arena with sparks. And when it finally did come down, Marjorie, my sister, caught that baton. And 12,000 people jumped to their feet for 16½ minutes of uninterrupted thunderous ovation as flames illuminated her tear-stained face. And that, Marjorie, just so you will know, and your children will someday know, is the night the lights went out in Georgia. Adnan, The only one in the bar who wasn't reciting along with everyone was completely overwhelmed. What could make a bar full of men stop in the tracks in the to recite an 80s era TV monologue with devotion often reserved for the preamble of the Constitution? Over the course of the series, Julia challenged prejudices about Southerners. She challenged archaic notions about womanhood, autonomy, and professional life. She challenged assumptions about relationships, marriage, and divorce, about parenthood and civic engagement. She highlighted sexism in healthcare. She offered a more complex portrait of identities of faith and demonstrated that one could be both liberal and religious. She even gave a lecture resulting in the message, "We don't care," to Donald Trump that we all should have heeded more closely. In the 80s, queer folks were making gains in visibility, social acceptance, and legal protections, but that visibility made them more vulnerable. Their gains were treated by some as dilutions or subtractions of dominant groups' pieces of the American pie. But civil rights and the dignity of living aren't pie. It's not a limited amount to be portioned and rationed or hoarded by a few. The AIDS epidemic fueled both obvious and latent prejudices against gay men toward a fury woven with fundamentalist Christian rhetoric and centuries old myths. While complicated in its origin, the message from those corners was clear. Queer people aren't us, and they deserve to die. Despite this, Julia Sugarbaker had our backs. The scene that stays with me today, from an episode I can't watch without weeping, introduces Tony Goldwyn in a guest role as a client, a gay man diagnosed with AIDS who hires the Sugarbaker team to design his funeral. When his path crosses with Imogene, an old friend and longtime client of the Sugarbakers, Imogene embodies the animus against queer people and lays into Tony and the women with a familiar manipulation of scripture and circumstances to justify her hatred. Goldwyn's character and the women respond with facts, but Imogene says clearly and plainly what too many people believed, what too many people still believe. AIDS has one thing going for it. It's killing all the right people. That's the match to the fuse that Julia needed, that transformed her into the hero who handily escorts Imogene out of their lives and reminds her that if God was giving out sexually transmitted diseases to people as a punishment for sinning, then you would be at the free clinic all the time. And so would the rest of us. I was 11 when the episode aired, just starting to develop an understanding of myself and of sexuality. Like most queer kids, I didn't have a guide to navigate the changes and construction of identity that happened with adolescence like my peers had. I didn't have people like me in my world that I knew of. I only knew that I was different, and the world was telling me that my difference would kill me, and it would be all my fault. Thank God I had Julia to stand up to the bullies, at least the fictional ones. Thank God we all did. And the best way we can express our gratitude is with reverent and enthusiastic recitation of Julia's most sacred words. So, how did TV and film influence you as a kid? How did it impact your self understanding or your understanding of the world around you? What characters were heroes for you? How have you been a hero for someone else? How would you like to be? I hope you'll join me in noticing what you're grateful for in this moment. You can see I'm already choked up. I can't tell you how grateful I am, even for fictional characters who were voices of solace in an overwhelmingly loud and hateful time. See you next time.